Greetings, Hamniverse. My name is Hamilton, creator and czar of humanoid marketing at HAMY Labs. Today we're going to be talking about how I gather emails for my startups, why that's so important to me in my practice and to startups in general, and go into some details about how I do it cheaply and efficiently. So here on the channel, I talk all about the art, businesses, and technology that I'm creating, as well as how I go about actually building them. Now, email addresses are pretty crucial for startups. They're one of the first things I try to do when I start my startup is to start gathering emails. Now, the reason for this is that email addresses are a really fast and cheap way to start validating your problem, tune your market position, and also gather some leads. So it's useful for validating your problem because just looking at site stats and the number of people to your site doesn't really tell you that much info. It might tell you that people are interested in the problem area, or maybe you have a cool website, or maybe they're just curious what you're working on. But it doesn't actually tell you anything about whether those people actually have that problem that you're trying to solve, or if the way that you're solving that problem is going to be something that those people are willing to buy. But by making people sign up for something with their email address, they're kind of giving something away. What they're giving away is their future peace. They know that if they give you an email address, they're giving you the opportunity to go and bother them later. So it's not as good as money. Money is probably one of the best commitments that you can actually get, but it is better than just looking at site stats, which is why it's so useful, especially at its very, very low cost. Similarly, by looking at actual emails, you can know if the way that you're solving that problem is useful to others, which is what tuning your market positioning about. And then also this gives you just a direct line of contact to all of these people that have visited your site. So assuming they're giving you real emails, you can later email them to have a chat and understand why they wanted to sign up, what were their problems, and maybe eventually turn them into a future customer. So that's really why emails are so important and the basis of why I'm making this video today. So that's why emails are so important. But the real awesome part about this is that they're also super duper low cost. And the reason they're low cost is it's really easy to just start gathering them. Basically, the only thing you need is to set up a website, embed a sign up form, and you can now send that link to anyone and start gathering the data that's useful to you as a startup founder to validate your positioning. And of course, when you get new ideas and you get new information from those customer conversations you're doing, you can just iterate on your website, and you can iterate on both the problem you're trying to solve and how you're trying to solve it, and send it out to more people and get more data. And ultimately, you are allowing yourself to iterate faster. And by iterating faster, you can tackle more business opportunities. And theoretically, the more business opportunities you are able to tackle, the higher the odds are that you will tackle one that you can be successful at. So let's dive more into actual email services for startups. So we know emails are important and why they're so useful, but how are we actually going to interact with these emails as a startup entity? The first thing we need to know is, what do we as a startup actually need out of this email service? And I think it's important to talk about because I don't think that our needs are going to be the same at every stage of a startup. The things that we're trying to do are different. The state that we're at is different. The resources at our disposal are different. So the things that we want out of our email service might change. So the first phase is basically the ideation phase. This is when you've just had an idea, or you've just started talking to people about problems and you have an inkling that something might work. Here, you're really just trying to validate that idea and iterate on your positioning here. So the things we need out of our email service will also reflect this. So in this phase, a lot of things that we want are some really easy sign-up forms and forms that people can fill out so we can send it to them and start gathering data as soon as possible. We really want to be able to make a lot of lists and have a lot of different contacts, because in this phase, we might actually be running 2, 3, 4 different startup experiments or problems that we might want to solve in parallel. And finally, we want it to be cheap. If all of your projects are in this ideation phase, then you probably don't have that much money flowing in. And we really want to protect those profit margins and whatever runway we might have. The next phase is the growth phase. So here we're really talking about trying to convert those customers that we may have gotten earlier in the ideation phase and gather new ones. You might be tapping into new marketing channels, new ads, things like that. So we want a more fully featured suite of tools to help us do that. So a lot of things that are useful here are some of the built-in marketing tools, some APIs so we can do things in batch and deal with them programmatically, and also a lot of automation because we want our ability to scale to outpace our resource expenditure. And finally is the enterprise phase. This is the, you made it, you've got this huge problem-solving factory that you've created, and now you're probably going to want more of everything that we've already talked about and even more that we haven't talked about, kind of marketing at scale. Now for me, as a solo entrepreneur and a solo developer, especially when doing things part-time, most of my projects are in the ideation phase. So I have a lot of projects. I have very few users in each project, and I'm really only sending a few emails. And because this is my position, this is going to be how I'm rating a lot of these services that we'll talk about in a second. So let's go into some of the different email services that I researched for my startups, and some of the things that I liked and didn't like about them. So the first is MailChimp, and this is actually a service that I've used for several years already for some personal email lists, as well as gathering some emails for startups. Now they have some really great tools, and they're known to be industry leading for a lot of these. But the thing that I found that didn't quite fit my positioning and what I was trying to do with it is that it costs about $10 a month for having anything more than one list. Now, because I have a huge portfolio of projects, having one list doesn't really work for me because subscribers to one of my projects won't necessarily want to hear about my other projects. But here I am spending at least $10 a month to hold a very low number of contacts and to send a very low number of emails. Just didn't really make sense. The next one I looked at was ConvertKit. Everything I read says that they have really great marketing tools, but when we go and look at the costs, it looks like it goes up even more at $29 for the first 1,000 subscribers. That's more than what MailChimp was charging me, so this one's even further away from what I'm looking for. The next we have Product Hunt Ship, and this is one I see all the time because I browse Product Hunt and look at all the new startups that are coming out. And this one is intriguing because it comes with more than just like an email service. It also comes with a lot of stuff like chat bubbles and A/B testing and a lot of other things that you can kind of plug into your website that gives a lot of things that these cool trendy startups are using these days. But when you look at that price tag, it is pretty steep if the only problem right now that I'm trying to solve is gathering email addresses cheaply and efficiently. And at $59 a month for anything more than one project, looking back, I would have had to pay that for many months where I'm not making $60 a month. So that seems like it's also even further from what I'm looking for. And now we get to an interesting one, Airtable. So as I was thinking about like the problem I'm trying to solve, I really am just trying to gather a bunch of emails from a bunch of different people. And Airtable actually supports forms. And in their free tier, you can hold up to 1,200 different records in a single list with unlimited different lists. So this would actually work pretty well for you if you were just trying to gather those emails. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you don't really want to be like hamstringed by some choices you made in the past. So as you grew out of that ideation phase, this probably wouldn't work for you anymore. You would need to add a marketing tool anyway. So this was put as like a maybe if I couldn't find a better solution. And finally, we come to SendinBlue. Now this is just a pretty standard marketing tool with APIs and it's automation and stuff. But what really made this stand out to me was that it has free unlimited lists of contacts. So you can have a new list for every startup that you're creating. You can have unlimited contacts in those. And the way that they have their pricing tiers, you only pay for the amount of emails you send. Now, I know that I'm going to come up with a ton of different projects and I'm going to gather a ton of different emails for each of those projects, but I'm only going to take on a few of those projects to actually build, which means that I'm not going to be sending that many emails. And so this really kind of checked the boxes for me and is actually the one that I ended up going with. In fact, I liked it so much that I actually decided to start implementing it in my current startups that I'm building, as well as plan to use it in some of my future startups. Here's one of those startups, Cloudseed, which I'm currently building. The goal of it is to make super simple to launch a scalable full stack app, and all the infra that is needed to support that. If you've seen my previous video on how I host on Google Cloud, it's a lot of those same technologies that allow you to scale to 100,000 users easy and beyond with just a little bit of configuration. Now it's still pre-alpha, so I'm not letting many people use it, but I can still tell people about it for all those same reasons that I listed here. By just throwing up a website that's publicly accessible and putting my email list on it so people can tell me if they're interested, request early access when I'm ready to start rolling it out. I can start validating that I'm solving that real problem, that the way that I'm solving it makes sense to a lot of people, and in the process gather some leads for some more conversations if I want to learn more. And hopefully turn some of those people into paying customers in the future. So that's how I gather emails for all of my startups cheaply and efficiently, and proof that this is actually how I do it with a live startup that I'm building. So let me know in the comments if you gather emails for your startup and how you are dealing with the management of those emails and the collection of it. And I'll have links to sign up for SendinBlue in the description, and of course a link to CloudSeed in case you are trying to launch scalable infra faster and cheaper than you already are doing. That's it for me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next cycle.